From being crushed by a runaway hay bale to being electrocuted on stage, guitar in hand, these 70s musicians came to truly bizarre ends.
The thing that makes all of us want to be alive is to matter. And the way you matter is care enough about something so you keep doing it.
Harry Chapin was a popular folk singer who was unapologetically political during the 70s. He was perhaps more famous for using his talents to raise money for worthy causes than for the number of records he sold.
He wanted to change the world, and he did.
Chapin's tragic death on July 16, 1981 is still a mystery. The 38-year-old Chapin was scheduled to play a free concert that evening. He was driving on the Long Island Expressway when he was involved in a bizarre car accident. This, in and of itself, might not have been that shocking. Chapin had been fined for speeding and other infractions at least 15 times in the previous 8 years, had his driver's license suspended 4 times in 5 years, and was in fact driving without a license at the time of the crash. But even with all that in mind, Chapin's actions don't make sense. According to witnesses, his Volkswagen had its hazards on and was traveling as slowly as 15 miles per hour. Chapin swerved repeatedly between lanes before being rear-ended by a trailer, which caused his car to burst into flames. Motorists who stopped managed to pull him out of the burning car. He was pronounced dead at the hospital, and unexpectedly, his autopsy found that his actual cause of death was a heart attack. But did it happen before or because of the accident? We'll likely never know. French singer Claude François was a massive star in Europe during the 1960s and 70s as part of the Yé movement, known to his fans as Clo-Clo. He sold 20 million records over his 16-year career. He's probably most famous for co-writing and recording the song Comme d'habitude, which Paul Anka then wrote English lyrics for before Frank Sinatra recorded it as My Way. François would fit in well with the modern musician-entrepreneur set. Long before it was common, he was running a mini-business empire with himself at the center. He owned companies that published magazines, started his own record label, and even helped pioneer the idea of music videos, making short films for some of his songs. François was also known for his incredible shows, complete with female backup dancers and special effects. Tragically, on March 11, 1978, the French singer died in his bathroom. While no one saw what happened, it appeared that he'd just run a bath when he noticed a light bulb flickering above him. He reached up to adjust it, either with wet hands or while still standing in the bath, and was electrocuted. Despite being discovered and rushed to the hospital, François died of his injuries. He was 39 years old. Quirky cellist Mike Edwards toured with the Electric Light Orchestra from 1972 to 1975, playing on some of their most iconic albums. Edwards was a fan favorite, doing silly things on stage like wearing a top hat, jumping off speakers with cello in hand, or pretending to play a cello that then exploded. But the band's managers treated him and many of the other musicians in the band as less important than the core members, so Edwards moved on. After his pop star moment, he traveled, converted to Buddhism, and eventually settled down in rural England where he gave music lessons. Then, on September 3, 2010, the 62-year-old Edwards was crushed to death by a runaway hay bale. He was working as a water delivery man at that point and was driving his van through the fields of Devon when a 1,300-pound bale of hay rolled down a hill and slammed into the vehicle, killing him instantly. Terry Kath was the guitarist for Chicago. In addition to playing in one of the most successful bands of all time, his other claim to fame was that Jimi Hendrix allegedly once said Kath was a better guitarist than he was. But despite his incredible talent, Kath began abusing drugs, especially cocaine. He also had other dangerous hobbies. Chicago drummer Danny Serafin told Classic Rock he collected guns and started taking them everywhere, and guns and drugs are a bad combination. On January 23, 1978, Kath had been on a multi-day cocaine binge when he shot himself. According to the one person who was there at the time, Chicago roadie Don Johnson, Kath was cleaning a pistol. When Johnson warned him to be careful, the guitarist showed him the gun's clip to indicate it wasn't loaded. But there was a bullet in the chamber. That's when the gun went off. Kath was 31 years old. The tragic death of the Yardbirds' Keith Relf came on May 12, 1976. While the group that brought him the biggest fame had disbanded in 1968, Relf had continued making and producing music throughout the 1970s, including founding a folk duo and 2 prog rock bands. He died doing what he loved, playing guitar. Even though he was only 33 at the time, his death might not have been a surprise to his loved ones. Relf suffered from chronic asthma and emphysema and had come close to dying 3 times before. On that day, he was practicing guitar in the basement of his London home. The instrument was ungrounded, so when Relf stepped on a metal pipe, it sent a surge of electricity through his body. The shock killed him, although it's unclear if his already weakened health contributed to his death. His family was intensely private about the loss, so to this day, many things remain unclear. For example, the date of his death is often mistakenly said to be May 14th. It's possible his 8-year-old son discovered his body, and some believe wrongly that he was playing guitar in the bathtub when he died.
For no one wants to be reminded of the passage of time, especially when they're having a good one.
Experimental singer-songwriter Peter Ivers' life was as eccentric as his music. He was found bludgeoned to death in his apartment on March 3, 1983. The investigation was botched so badly that the cops allowed one of the most likely suspects, producer David Jove, to leave with bloody evidence, while friends wandered through the crime scene and police completely ignored key clues. Unsurprisingly, no one was arrested. Retired LAPD detective Cliff Shepard told Entertainment Weekly that cops had someone in mind for the crime, saying, "They came up with a suspect, who was a rooftop burglar who fell off a roof." Maybe, but Jove had the motive and the temperament to kill Ivers. Author Josh Frank, who co-wrote a biography of Ivers, told the Washington Post, "Detective Shepard came up to me and said, 'Josh, I want you to know you were very thorough. You found a lot of important pieces that were never looked into. I'm gonna get back to it.' The case was reopened in 2008, but as of 2025, it remains unsolved." Al Jackson Jr. was the drummer in Booker T and the MGs, as well as an in-demand session musician, but his marriage was anything but a hit. On July 31, 1975, Al was arguing with his wife Barbara Jackson when it turned physical. Barbara claimed she was forced to shoot her husband twice in self-defense, and Al, who survived, admitted he'd physically assaulted her. He wouldn't be so lucky a few months later, on October 1, 1975, when he was shot 5 times in the back during a home invasion. Barbara was there this time as well, although she was tied up. She claimed Al returned home to find a man robbing their house, and the burglar killed him. Jackson was 39 years old. The police were unusually chatty about the case, at least at first. One officer volunteered, "Whoever killed him really wanted him dead." Then, in April 1976, Sergeant Jim Hester announced, "We are very close to seeking indictments against those responsible for his death. We expect to move soon." Another officer, Captain Tommy Smith, added that 4 suspects were under investigation, but no more information on the suspects was released and no indictments ever materialized. One theory is that the murder was committed by a boyfriend of Barbara's. Who knows? As of 2025, Jackson's murder is still officially unsolved. Billy Murcia was the original drummer for the New York Dolls. While the death of Johnny Thunders remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries of classic rock, Murcia's death on November 6, 1972 was just as tragic. The Dolls were on tour in England at the time, and Murcia was at a party doing drugs with a bunch of posh kids. After taking too many barbiturates, Murcia passed out. When it looked like he was ODing, the others at the party panicked. Instead of calling for medical help, they tried to revive Murcia by forcing coffee down his throat and sticking him in the bathtub to no avail. His cause of death remains murky. Some sources say it was asphyxiation, others say drowning, and still others say he OD'd. In Please Kill Me, the uncensored oral history of punk, Dolls drummer Jerry Nolan described Murcia's death as a drowning and said, "Billy's death may not have been foul play, but it was real abuse. These rich kids freaked out and ran away. They all split on the guy. What a waste." Bandmate Sylvain had the hardest job, sharing, "I had to call his mother and tell her since I knew the whole family. She just couldn't believe it. I never heard anybody screaming that much in my life." Murcia was just 21 years old. Guitarist Leslie Les Harvey of the Scottish rock band Stone the Crows died in a freak accident, and it happened in full view of the audience waiting to see the band play in Wales on May 3, 1972. There are stories of a rainstorm, puddles, a blistering final guitar solo, and Harvey writhing on the stage while no one realizes anything is wrong. But that's just urban legend. Harvey's bandmates were offstage and remember watching the tragedy unfold. Singer Maggie Bell told Classic Rock, "We were standing at the side of the stage. We hadn't even started yet. Leslie said to the audience, 'There's a technical hitch,' and he touched the ungrounded microphone and the guitar. And that was it." Drummer Colin Allen remembers, "We heard this deep humming sound. Leslie had the microphone in one hand and his guitar in the other. They kind of went together, and then like an arc shape appeared. I was up really quickly and kicked the guitar out of his hand as he was lying on the floor." Harvey died instantly. Graham Bond was an enormously talented musician who never seemed to find the success he believed he deserved. He was especially hurt when 2 members of his group, the Graham Bond Organization, left to form Cream, one of rock and roll's greatest supergroups. Bond abused drugs and had an obsession with the occult. He was adopted and became convinced that he was actually Aleister Crowley's biological son. Singer Pete Brown talked about Bond's occult fixation, telling Classic Rock, "Aleister Crowley just seemed like a f***ing creep to me. Graham started off with so-called white magic, then I don't know where it went. People make some bad choices."
Aleister Crowley sings. Sadly, no, I don't carry that, but I do have some very nice well sounds.
By the time he died, Bond claimed to be getting his life and career back together. As Brown remembered, right at the end, Graham said to me, "I'm giving all the magic stuff up and I'm just going to play. I'm not going to do anything influenced by that anymore." Then a few days later, he was dead. On May 8, 1974, the 36-year-old Bond fell onto the tracks and was run over by the London Tube. The popular belief is that it was suicide, but there are other theories out there, including that he was chased by people to whom he owed money, or, despite his claims to have moved on from that part of his life, that it had something to do with his occult obsession.